So earlier on today, Turki Alalshikh has put out a load of things that he wants to see in 2025. So he's announced it. So he's announced huge plans for 2025 IFL TV have put out, and I'm gonna probably save some of them for separate videos and make separate videos on each one. But the one I want to talk about here is he wants to make Oleksandr Usyk versus Moses Itauma. Interesting bloody stuff in my opinion. But there's also something to look at here as well, and that is that Turki Alalshikh wants Moses Itauma versus Kubrat Pulev before May 19th. So that tells you something as well. So if Itauma can get through Kubrat Pulev, which you'd say he probably will, especially with how bloody Kubrat Pulev performed against Mahmoud Shah, then he could get a fight against Oleksandr Usyk, because currently Kubrat Pulev's like the regular WBA champion right now. So he would technically be next in line for Oleksandr Usyk. But if Moses Itauma gets the win, then it's going to be him next in line for Usyk. How do I actually feel about this, and how do many other people feel about this as well, is a very interesting question. Because obviously, I think what most people want to see as of now anyway is the winner of Daniel Dubois versus Joseph Parker fight Oleksandr Usyk later on this year. But, Turki Alalshikh wants Moses Itauma versus Kubrat Pulev before May 19th. So that makes something interesting, that he might be, saying to Usyk, have the majority of the year off, and then late on in 2025, we do Oleksandr Usyk versus Moses Itauma. But if I'm being real here, I just don't really see the point in that right now, in my opinion. I mean, we look at all these other announcements right here, and we don't see anything to do with Daniel Dubois or Joseph Parker versus Usyk. It's, Moses Itauma in two of these plans for Turki Alalshikh. And rightly so, Moses Itauma should be in Turki Alalshikh's plans. This guy is the future of the heavyweight division and will be, the top guy for many years to come, if we're being completely honest. But if I'm being real, I mean, it's also because I really do like both Moses Itauma and Oleksandr Usyk. That's why I don't want to. That's the reason why I don't want to see them fight. But also, just from a general perspective as well, I mean, I don't really want to see, either guy lose at this point in their career. And, I'm pretty certain as of now, Oleksandr Usyk beats Moses Itauma. I'm pretty certain of that. And I don't want to see Moses Itauma take a loss at 20 years old just yet, when, there's really something to build up. Even though, a loss to Oleksandr Usyk means, it doesn't really mean anything to Moses Itauma, because it's not a bad look at the end of the day. If you lose to Usyk, who cares? Usyk's one of the best to ever do it. And Moses would only be 20 years old, so it wouldn't really have much of a massive effect. But still, though, if we really want to properly build someone up, most of the time we're getting a shot against Oleksandr Usyk this year, it's unfair on other top guys in the division, in my opinion. So that's it. Well, that's what I would do. I wouldn't really want to match Itauma up against Usyk. Itauma versus Kubrat Pulev is a pretty cool fight, in my opinion, for Itauma. But for Itauma, beating Pulev doesn't really earn a shot against Oleksandr Usyk. And, I'd rather see, Itauma really try and build up his record properly, not pad it or anything, but, with those wins over Wack, Dempsey, McKean, keep on, up in those kind of levels, and, get as many decent names on the record as Itauma can, because you never know, with the rate that Moses Itauma's going at as of now, he can have one of the best records in British boxing history, or boxing history ever, if he is really properly built up like how he's being done now. Just chucking him in there to an Oleksandr Usyk fight this year, which he probably won't win, I don't really think does it. Try and build him up in the best way possible, because, as I said, it wouldn't make a massive difference if he loses. But I think there's other things that Usyk should do. I think it's better for Oleksandr Usyk as well to fight guys who are in his era, because Oleksandr Usyk beating Moser Itauma at this point in Itauma's career, it does nothing for Oleksandr Usyk if he beats Itauma right now. Like, it does nothing for him. If Usyk can get a second win over Dubois, if Usyk can get a win over Joseph Parker, it's a great way for Usyk to end his career. And it's someone who's, in his kind of era as well. And, get a win there. And it just adds that even more bit more beef to that record for Oleksandr Usyk and makes his record look even bloody better. A win over a 20-year-old Moser Itauma, it doesn't really mean much. It doesn't do anything for Usyk, in my opinion. So I think it's a pointless fight for Oleksandr Usyk to take. Because, Usyk's just got everything to lose in that fight. He can't gain anything from that, apart from, if Itauma... Because, look, no, even if Itauma does build up and become a world champion, like undisputed one day, which he probably will, Usyk beating him at this stage means absolutely nothing. There's better things that Usyk can do. He can fight, I would rather see Usyk fight Zhang or Kabayel than fight Moser Itauma right now. I just don't really think there's any point in it right now. And I don't think it sells too great either. Usyk Dubois sells much better than what Usyk-Ituma does right now anyway. Usyk versus Parker, in my opinion, sells better than Usyk versus Itauma. Usyk versus Zhang sells better than Usyk versus Itauma. So I think don't do that right now. I mean, Itauma's going to have big bloody money fights one day anyway. I mean, he's already building his way up to it anyway. But I feel like one day we could see a big money fight in Britain as well between Moser Itauma and Daniel Dubois. Try and make that kind of fight. Or instead, what I would rather see Turki Alalshikh do instead of do Itauma versus Usyk is, if Dubois beats Parker, do Usyk versus the winner of Zhang and Kabayel, and then do Moser Itauma versus Daniel Dubois right now. I think Itauma versus Dubois right now, it's a better fight it's a better fight to make than Itauma versus Usyk, because first of all, Dubois versus Itauma is great for British boxing fans, and as well, I think Dubois beating Itauma is better than it means more to, I think, Dubois beating Itauma means more to Dubois' record with a win over Itauma than it does with Usyk having a win over Itauma. I think that matters more to Dubois because obviously he's the younger guy, he's a British heavyweight as well. But with Usyk, I think it's much better off for Oleksandr Usyk having someone like Joseph Parker or Zhang on his resume as a win. I think, it just makes him look that even bit better, of course, as well. And it's a good, solid win for Oleksandr Usyk to end his career on, with a win over an experienced Joseph Parker, who's in his prime, or an experienced Zhilei Zhang, who you could say is in his prime as well. Or Daniel Dubois if Dubois Usyk gets made. They're the kind of fights that Usyk needs to have and retire on, in my opinion, not a Moser Itauma fight. That's what I think. But yeah, for Moser Itauma versus Kubrat Pulev, that can happen in May 19th. I think that's probably the right way to go for Moser Itauma, in my opinion, because let's be real, Pulev's not in his prime right now at all. You'd probably back Itauma to win that fight. And also as well, even though I did say, Dubois having a win over Itauma, I think Itauma having a win, Itauma can beat Dubois. Can he this year? Probably not, to be fair. But, he can. He stands more of a chance of beating Dubois than he does Usyk. Like, I wouldn't really give Moser Itauma a chance against Usyk whatsoever at this point in his career anyway. But, yeah, that's all my thoughts on that situation. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll speak to you all in a bit.